What's up, everybody? This is the Fascist Man here.
What?
And today, I'm reviewing one of my favorite movies of all time, Starship Troopers.
Would you like to know more?
Yes.
Also, side note, this video has been a bitch to put together because of copyright. So if the audio and visuals are weird when I'm playing clips from the movie, that's why. I'm trying to get around copyright. Anyways, I'm more excited now than I was when I first watched the co-ed shower scene. The recent explosion of Helldivers 2 has generated renewed interest in Starship Troopers. Today, most people regard this movie as a classic sci-fi film, with amazing visuals and effects and a thought-provoking message. When it was released to theaters in 1997, however, Starship Troopers bewildered critics and audiences alike. Although in hindsight, it's somewhat unbelievable that this obvious blatant satire could go over so many people's heads.
A murderer was captured this morning and tried today.
Guilty.
Sentence, death. Execution tonight at 6. All net, all channels.
Now, I first saw this movie in my early teens because I had played the StarCraft custom game for it and thought it was really fun. And when I watched it, I enjoyed this movie for what I thought it was, a big budget, dumb action movie about killing space bugs. And the great thing about Starship Troopers is you can watch it just for that, just for the surface level enjoyment. Starship Troopers is based on the book of the same name from Robert Heinlein. What's ironic is the director of the film, Paul Verhoeven, famously didn't read the entire novel and apparently misinterpreted much of it, the same way his film would later be misinterpreted.
That's what you call ironic.
Sadly, Starship Troopers underperformed at the box office. It got mixed reviews from critics, and to this day, the messages and themes of the movie are still hotly debated. Some interpret the film as glorifying militarism and fascism. Others say it fails to satirize these things properly. Regardless, I think it's time to throw my hat in the ring, set the record straight, and let you know what I think Starship Troopers is really about, and why it's so awesome. The film begins with that iconic recruitment commercial.
I'm doing my part.
I'm doing my part.
They're doing their part. Are you? The heroic music and happy faces makes it look like serving in the military. Wow, that's just the greatest thing ever.
Join the mobile infantry and save the world.
What's that? Join the mobile infantry and save the world? And I become a citizen? What a deal. Why aren't you doing your part, you bastard? These propaganda reels are one of the most memed and recognizable aspects of Starship Troopers, and they're very important in understanding the film because they clue you in on what's really going on. So the setting of Starship Troopers is basically veterans took control of the world and the government, and they rule it now. In order to become a citizen and have the rights that like you and I take for granted, you have to serve in the military, otherwise you are a civilian and you don't get to vote and you can't reproduce and blah 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 blah. Now in the opening we learn about humanity's enemy, which is the bugs, but there is a suspicious lack of information given to us, the audience, and the characters of the story. Now we get a glimpse of the bugs and their lethality literally through the lens of the cameraman on scene during the invasion of Klendathu 1 year earlier. So our protagonist is Johnny motherfucking Rico, a stud.
Rico! Pay attention.
You hear, Mr. Ratcheck? Pay attention. This is important.
Let's sum up. This year we explored the failure of democracy, while the social scientists brought our world to the brink of chaos.
The scene is doing a few things, showing you the romance between Carmen and Rico, while also lecturing you in the background on the failure of democracy, how violence is the supreme authority.
But when you vote, you are exercising political authority. You're using force. Force, my friends, is violence, the supreme authority from which all other authority is derived.
You hear that, kids at home watching this? Violence solves all problems. One thing I noticed about Starship Troopers is that it's actually pretty easy to believe all of the lessons, lectures, and propaganda you're being shown if you only look at the results. If you turn your brain off to the ethics of what is actually happening, then it's easy to believe what you're being told.
My mother always said violence never solves anything.
Really? I wonder what the city fathers of Hiroshima would say about that. Naked force has resolved more issues throughout history than any other factor.
Mr. Ratcheck makes surprisingly compelling arguments for violence solves everything by bringing up Hiroshima. Yeah, it did end the war. And technically he's right. Those are the results. But you have to ignore the unimaginable amount of human suffering to base your entire society off of this idea that violence solves everything. So for the rest of this video, and if you watch this movie on your own, just remember, ignore the ethics, look at the results, and you can see how everyone gets brainwashed. Now, at the end of this lesson, Mr. Ratchek asks Rico if he truly understands and believes the lesson.
But do you understand it? Do you believe it?
I don't know.
So at this point, Rico is still himself. He's clearly more interested in Carmen and girls than he is in this idea of being a citizen and believing what the state is telling him to believe. Rico is not a brainwashed psycho. Yet. Now I want to talk about the cast of this movie and how the Society of the Federation is presented, because there is a meta aspect to it, which I really enjoy. If you look at Starship Troopers as a propaganda film that could be used as propaganda in the actual universe of the movie, then a lot of pieces click into place. You know, all the students and young people in this movie are beautiful. Denise Richards, Casper Van Dien, Neil Patrick Harris, Dina Myers. They're as objectively attractive as they can be. They all have perfect skin, perfect lighting, chiseled jaws. Maybe I could have starred in this movie too. There's a clear dichotomy between presentation and reality. It's presented like all these attractive, amazing people are signing up for military service. In reality, all the adults who served in the military are horribly disfigured in some way.
Mobile infantry made me the man I am today.
Rico gets a glimpse of this right as he is deciding to sign up, and he still does it, mostly because he's thinking with his dick for Carmen, which I totally understand. That's Denise Richards. I get it, man. But even when he's staring the reality of war in the face, he still decides it's worth it. You know, the first third of this film is everyone wide-eyed, optimistic, planning their future. In the co-ed shower scene that I watch every morning before breakfast, the characters talk about why they signed up and how they can't live out their dreams unless they earn the privilege to through service.
I want to have babies. You know, it's a lot easier to get a license if you serve, so.
What's that? You want kids? Go kill bugs. You know, the film does a great job at juxtaposing what serving in this Federation is actually like and what the Federation wants you to think it is like. The world and society of Starship Troopers is portrayed as a utopia with faster than light travel, massive fleets of gigantic ships. They have complete gender and racial equality. The officers pick fights with chicks the same way they pick fights with dudes. They have a fucking orbital defense ring around Earth that shoots down meteors. This society is technologically advanced, but it is held together by barbaric beliefs and the need for violence and an enemy. The Federation still uses corporal punishment and execution by hanging.
Going off mission. That's a serious offense.
Yeah, I think they hang you for that.
In this society, suspects of crimes are captured, tried, and then executed in the same day, with the execution being forcibly shown on all channels at the same time. What, you got your kids watching? Yeah, they better be watching this man die. Look at the results. Ignore the ethics. We got the murderer and we killed him. Problem solved. Violence solves everything.
Violence never solves anything. Stab her, bitch!
What was probably very confusing about this movie is that Starship Troopers takes a cast of people that would have starred in like a high school romance coming of age story, and they throw them on this dark, depressing planet infested with giant murderous bugs. It's a match made in heaven. And it's why the movie works so well. Like, if these people were more stereotypical Marines, it wouldn't have the same impact. So in the way, the film does a brilliant job of contrasting the ideal beauty that is presented, that is fake, with the horror that is real. Now, I also want to highlight that the music and atmosphere of this movie, it really does sell you on the whole military is cool thing. You got fucking Clancy Brown. You have Mr. Krabs as the drill sergeant. Absolutely fantastic job.
Who needs a knife in a nuke fight anyway? All you gotta do is push a button.
You know, Dean Norris is in this movie too. But again, the presentation, the heroism that is portrayed is meant to trick you and the characters of the story that what you're doing is heroic, righteous. But over the course of the story, you grow to like a lot of the characters, you know, as they go through boot camp, and you see the chemistry between Rico and Diz flourish, and everyone feels like a real person. Ace is one of my favorite characters. I love his line,
Everybody should have a friend like me.
Come to think of it, this movie has really well-written dialogue and a lot of good one-liners.
This is for you new people. I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits. If you don't do your job, I'll shoot you.
So at least for me, I ended up liking a lot of the characters, and I did want them to succeed against the bugs. I didn't want any of them to die. Everyone's so optimistic and happy, and then they go to invade Klendathu, and reality sets in. In this initial battle, all the characters we've been getting to know are all unceremoniously killed in the most horrific, brutal ways. That being said, the action in Starship Troopers, 10 out of 10. I'm still shocked at how well these effects have aged. There's movies that come out now that don't look as good as this. Now, it makes sense because apparently half of the $100 million budget was spent on the effects, both practical and digital, but still, you know, it's a perfect combination of both fields because the bugs look, feel, and move like you'd think they would. When Carmen's flying her ship around through the interior of the ring, I think that was like a miniature model. Looks amazing. It really goes a long way when you build like real practical sets that feel lived in and authentic, as opposed to just relying on green screen for the background like Avatar: The Last Airbender seems to be doing. There's also a callous disregard for human life and firearm safety. In the live fire exercise, there's guys on an outpost tower in the direction everyone is shooting at. Could be a limitation of the set and how much room they had to work with, but I think it's funnier that the society just cares that little about safety. Rico inadvertently gets Breckenridge killed, and as a result is met with 10 lashings. He decides mobile infantry isn't for him because he signed up for Carmen and he's not even talking to her, that hoe. So as he's going down Washout Lane, something happens.
Hey, what's going on? War! We're going to war!
Buenos Aires, Rico's hometown, was just destroyed by a bug meteorite. Now war is inevitable. Now hear me out, I'm no bug sympathizer. If you think this war is necessary and justified, and with good reason, then congratulations, you have fallen for the same propaganda the main characters did. Now we're all free to interpret movies as we see them, and you're not necessarily wrong for thinking this or that. These are just my opinions, right? But I think the idea that the bugs attacked first is so ludicrous, and it's such an obvious false flag operation that Starship Troopers becomes a really good test for how easily people can be brainwashed into just believing what they're told without question. I always thought this was made pretty clear. You know, it's why the movie points out the defense grid at the start. Chekhov's gun. I always thought the film presented this as like an obvious false flag operation.
Produce an unlimited supply of bug meteorites in the form of this asteroid belt.
Bug meteorites in the form of an asteroid belt. It's just a regular asteroid belt.
What you say is heresy.
Also, it's pretty funny that like you have all these gigantic starships, orbital defense rings around entire planets. These things require scientifically gifted minds to create, manage, and operate. And yet nobody seems to point out or question how bugs managed to send a meteor across the entire Milky Way galaxy and hit their target dead on.
To ensure the safety of our solar system, Klendathu must be eliminated.
So I've seen people saying like, no, the bugs attacked first. And then there's this article like Starship Troopers gets asteroid science all wrong. Yes, it does, intentionally, because it's a lie. The idea that bugs are shooting meteors at faster than light speeds across 20,000 light years of the Milky Way galaxy It's ludicrous, at least in my opinion. You know, and it's not explicitly stated, but it is heavily implied that humanity started this war by having colonies and outposts set up on bug planets, invading their home territory, and these are just bugs defending their home. Like they would if you stuck your fist into an anthill, the ants would bite you. Or if you went out into the forest and smacked the wasp nests, the wasps would attack you. Also in the movie, the Federation does not believe the bugs are intelligent. The initial attack and disaster on Klendathu is proof of that because they underestimated their enemy.
Plasma man from the planet.
Bug batteries. According to military intelligence, it'll be random and light.
This isn't random or light.
Someone made a big goddamn mistake.
So simultaneously, the people of the Federation and the audience is being told two contradictory things. The bugs are intelligent enough to shoot meteors at our planet and hit them with precision aim, and the bugs are not intelligent, and we can easily conquer them.
Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
Now, none of this is meant to say that you are supposed to sympathize with the bugs. Again, I view it as more of like a wasp nest. But you are supposed to question why this war is even happening. Why are we going out looking for wasp nests? If we keep fucking with them, we're just gonna get stung again. You're supposed to ask questions. Why are we traveling to the other side of the galaxy to ensure our safety by waging war on a bug-infested planet when we have an orbital defense ring capable of shooting down meteors, except that one meteorite that landed on Buenos Aires and destroyed it and was then used as the justification for invading Klendathu. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons I love this movie. It's like a test for how easy it is to be brainwashed. As a viewer, like, I'm rooting for Rico and Ace and Carmen. I don't want any of these characters to die. I want them to defeat the bugs. But to believe that this war is justified, you have to completely ignore the cost of human life that is paid. Fighting an enemy that doesn't need to be fought. Simply because the society requires war, violence, and an enemy in order to function. In order to justify the rules and guidelines of civilians versus citizens. Now, another thing I don't see many people talking about when it comes to Starship Troopers is how it's simultaneously one of the most badass and depressing films ever. At the start of the movie, Johnny Rico is questioning whether violence solves all problems, but at the end of it, despite seeing all his friends and Diz, his new lover, despite seeing all his friends and all these people he cares about killed in a meaningless war, he only becomes further entrenched in the belief that the bugs are the enemy, that they have to fight them. At the end of the movie, Johnny Rico is completely brainwashed. He's an agent of the state. Johnny and Carmen are together again, even though they clearly wanted to be with other people who died. You know, Starship Troopers is deceptively depressing because in a normal movie, Johnny Rico might have turned into a rebel. He might have waged war against the state or started a rebellion. He might have questioned what was really happening. And maybe in the end, love would win. But in Starship Troopers, love doesn't win. Violence does. And it will continue to. They'll keep fighting and they'll win. Now, in some ways, Starship Troopers feels more depressing than The Thing, because the ending pretends like it's good, it's positive. The heroism portrayed in the propaganda and at the end of the movie is at direct odds with what actually occurs in the film. It's deceptively depressing, and I tend to enjoy movies that don't go for the typical Disney and they all live happily ever after type of ending. By the end, Johnny Rico has lost all sense of individuality. He's lost the love of his life, his teacher, his mentor, countless friends, and he's witnessed the horrors of this war firsthand. And he's even more brainwashed because of that.
Come on, you apes! You wanna live forever!
And despite all of that, he's completely sold. He's completely sold on the idea that violence solves everything. I would say a movie like The Hunger Games is kind of the opposite, where the protagonist takes up the goal of destroying the fascist regime. But in Starship Troopers, the protagonist continues to fight for it. It's pretty sad to watch Johnny come to the conclusion that violence and hatred of an enemy is more important than the love of a woman, you know? Starship Troopers does very little to try and humanize or make you sympathetic to the bugs. And that's kind of the point. They don't want you to feel any sympathy for them, because if you did, you might start questioning the war, blah, blah, blah. One of my favorite moments is when they kill one of the bugs and it's sitting there and it zooms in on its eye. And you think, you know, maybe there's a moment of empathy, and then he just immediately starts blasting it and goo goes all over his face.
Ain't much to look at after you scrape them off your boot.
It gets me every time. In conclusion, I think Starship Troopers is the perfect blend of smart and stupid. It's the perfect combination of substance and form. Whether or not you agree or disagree with my opinions and interpretations of the film is not as important as the fact that we all continue to discuss this movie, because I fucking love it. And movies like this get people to think, to analyze things on a deeper level, ask questions, which is what the characters in the movie should be doing but aren't. So continue doing that and don't be brainwashed like the people in this movie. The action is epic, the characters are likable, it's a good ass movie, one of my favorites. Love you, Starship Troopers. So thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. Are you doing your part in liking this video? Well, you should be. Would you like to watch more, Actman? Then subscribe to the channel. Alright everyone, that's all I got for today. This is the Fascism Man signing out. Peace!